How was Prince Edward's relationship with Queen Elizabeth different from the rest of the royal siblings? As it turns out, their special bond started literally on the day he was born and continued all the way up until her death at 96. 16 years younger than Prince Charles, Prince Edward, Earl of Wessex, is the youngest child of Queen Elizabeth and her husband, Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. And according to Ingrid Seward's book, My Husband and I, The Inside Story of 70 Years of Royal Marriage, the birth of Prince Edward saw Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip break royal tradition by allowing the Duke of Edinburgh at the birth. Seward wrote, "The Duke of Edinburgh was actually holding his wife's hand as their youngest was born on March 10, 1964. The Queen, by then aged 37, had asked him to be there. She'd been keenly reading women's magazines that stressed the importance of involving fathers in childbirth and had become fascinated by the idea."
Inevitably, it's an awkward situation to be in.
This set the precedent for the type of relationship Prince Edward would have with both his parents. Unlike her relationship with Edward's siblings, Queen Elizabeth seemingly integrated Edward into her role, rather than leaving him with nannies. That made her much more involved with his life. Seward recounted in her book, "Leave him with me, Mabel," the Queen would say some mornings to the nanny. He'd be left with his mother, playing on the floor of her study while she worked at her desk on her state papers. And that's a trend she continued right up until the end. Both Edward and his wife Sophie, whom he wed in 1999, were believed to be two of the Queen's most trusted members of the royal family. As a royal insider told Express, Edward has molded into a quiet and efficient figure who does not seek attention or acquire headlines. He and Sophie are liked for being dutiful and uncomplaining. Of all Queen Elizabeth's children, Prince Edward has arguably seemed least interested in pursuing life as a royal, and is the one who has most developed his own interests outside the family. For example, unlike his siblings and both his parents, he shunned the military, leaving the Navy after being enlisted for 4 months. Prince Edward was also more interested in the arts than in outdoor pursuits such as riding horses, which was a favorite pastime of Queen Elizabeth. As Sky News pointed out, for this and other reasons, some believed Edward might have been the weak link in the family. That perception certainly shifted as Queen Elizabeth neared the end of her life. In her later years, she began to give both Edward and his wife Sophie, Countess of Wessex, more responsibilities within the royal sphere. This was ramped up after Prince Harry and Meghan Markle stepped back as senior royals, and further as Prince Andrew's myriad scandals reduced his capacity to serve the monarchy. As royal author Sarah Gristwood told Sky News, with fewer working members of the royal family after Andrew, Harry, and Meghan stepped down, Edward and his family have become more respected and more prominent. Back in 2016, Prince Edward and his wife Sophie sat down for an interview with Sky News when they spoke at length about their relationship with Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip. In part, the pair revealed that they spent just about every weekend with Edward's parents, which gave Queen Elizabeth the opportunity to enjoy her grandchildren by Edward, Lady Louise and James, Viscount Severn.
We're over there most weekends riding, and so she sees quite a lot of us.
Body language expert Judy James told Express that in her opinion, it was clear from stories such as this and from Queen Elizabeth's own interactions with Edward that he was her favorite child, or at least the one she could most love out loud, as James said. As her youngest child and with a large age gap between himself and Charles and Anne, Edward seemed to have been the baby that the Queen allowed herself to dote on openly, rather than adopting a rather more formal approach with in public.